Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Namaste Experience. I'm excited about this morning's sharing because we're going to go in a slightly different direction, and yet the same real direction that we've always gone. In other words, I'm not going to share a parable this morning, but there's something that I came across on my phone because this is where I usually take notes when something starts to come to or through. And I came across something that I wrote originally right a few months ago, right after I was at the Shivananda Yoga Ashram on Paradise Island. You remember I was there, I think in January, sharing some programs. Such a beautiful experience to be surrounded, just as we are here at Namaste Village, to be surrounded by people who are fully dedicated, completely dedicated to one thing. Now, if I asked you what that one thing is, the easy answer is love. Right. Now, that could be talked about and expressed in a lot of different ways, what love is. But ultimately, and this is where we're going to be going, it is the love of the beloved. Okay, because God is love, therefore so am I. So there is a circle or a cycle of the experience of that love, which is everything, everywhere, all the time. We use words like God, we use words like love, but it's very different than, say, the concept of love. In fact, this morning at the breakfast table, it's amazing how many of these sessions kind of come about through breakfast conversation. We were talking about the biological and genetic relationships that we or the pull of these things in our physicality. For example, I was talking about how we have the ability to actually smell potential mates who are either more diverse from us genetically or less diverse genetically. They've actually proven this with different experiments. So if there's a potential mate that you come across and you're not, you don't like their smell, it just doesn't attract you. Chances are the reason is because their genetic makeup is similar to yours, as opposed to someone that you might, something about the smell just pulls you in. It's probably because they're much more genetically diverse. And in the human species, in biology in general, we're always looking to increase diversity. So in a relationship, in a marriage, it's because we want to pass on more diversity to our children. If I marry someone who's very similar to me genetically, it's not going to help the children as much as if I married someone who was very diverse from me. It gives them greater diversity to ward off disease or whatever it may be. This is how biology works. Now, we can say, as we so often do, that the world I perceive is not the real world. And that would be true. And yet we still find ourselves here in these bodies, what we could just call communication devices. And we're here to express something, or perhaps better said, to realize, to see through my real eyes that which has always seen me. And so we find ourselves here, at least for a moment, subject to these biological draws or pulls, but at the same time, we're being lifted above all of those things. We're being lifted above the world of form into an experience of one, of love, of now. Okay? So I want to talk about what I feel to be the cleanest, clearest. In fact, I would even go so far as to say the only real path into the experience of reality, of enlightenment. And as we said before, that path can only be one thing, and that's love. Okay. If God is love, the very essence of love, and reality itself is that, and I and we share in that same vibrational frequency of love, not just in the way that we're drawn to one another biologically or romantically, all the specialness that we endure. I like that we endure, not that we enjoy, because so often there's not as much enjoyment there that we would like there to be. The special relationship is more something that we endure rather than continually enjoy. And yet above all of that, there is an overtone. Do you guys know what an overtone is? So overtone singing, for example, I can demonstrate this for you. I don't know if it'll come across on the recording or the Zoom, but it's a way of singing a single note, but then suddenly another note will rise above that. And though that bass note, the foundational note, remains steady, there is a freedom to that higher note, the overtone, that the lower frequency does not have. So let me give you an example. So you'll hear me start off making a sound, and then you'll begin to hear the overtone come. I haven't done this in a long time, so hopefully I can still do it. Do you hear that?
Yeah.
Now, there's some people who are really talented who can control that overtone, and while the one note stays the same, they can make the overtone do Amazing Grace or some other song. Really interesting. So we are becoming the overtone in our experience of love, of God, of now, which lifts above that foundation. In other words, we're lifting above our biology, our physicality, the gravitational pull of the ego to stay here. In fact, you could look at the fact that biologically we are always seeking more diversity or being attracted to potential mates who are as diverse from us as possible, as the way the world itself tries to maintain its hold on you not becoming the overtone. You see what I'm saying? Okay, just stay here. Look for a mate that's going to help you pass on your diversity so you can keep making children that are going to continue to survive. And stay here. Don't lift, don't rise, don't resurrect. Our physical or biological nature is actually, what's the word? Conspiring to keep us where we are. In other words, grounded. But there is a path, there is a way that lifts us above that. Now, we said the word love, but what I want to look at now is the highest form of yoga, which is Bhakti yoga, or the yoga of love or devotion. Okay? So this is, we heard in the meditation before we started session, I forget the exact words, but drown in the fire of love, or burn in the fire of love. Thank you. Burn in the fire of love. Throw yourself into that fire with complete abandon. Don't worry about what's going to get burned or what's going to get singed, because nothing real can ever be threatened and nothing unreal exists. So why would you possibly worry about losing anything? Burn in the fire of love. This is what Bhakti Yoga is all about. So I mentioned the Shivananda Yoga Ashram because I think it was when I was just leaving there, I was feeling this burning so strong that I wrote down the 10 paths or the 10 devotions of Bhakti. of divine love. Okay, but first let me read something that I just wanted to define what this is in case you're less familiar with it. And I looked this up. It said the word Bhakti, from the root meaning to share, conveys the sense of sharing or giving inherent in the love of God. Conveys the sense of sharing or giving inherent in the love of God. Okay, Bhakti comes from the word ba, or Bhaj, which means to be devoted or attached to. So this is the path of devotion. It is pure, unselfish love mixed with reverence. So traditionally, this is what Bhakti Yoga is, how it's been defined. But ultimately, it really has nothing to do with the definition, but the experience. Yes.
Could you spell that out, please?
Yes, it's Bhakti is spelled Bhakti. Bhakti. Okay. So when I was at the Shivananda ashram, I actually, because I was so in the experience, the vibrancy of this, I wrote down what made sense to me as the 10 devotions, right? The 10 paths into that experience. Now, as I was reading them this morning, I noticed something interesting, and you'll be able to relate to this if you think about a time in which you were so completely enamored or completely infatuated with someone, and you felt that overwhelming bliss every time you thought of that person. And you also found that your mind, your intellectual mind, would kind of run in circles. Let's say you were trying to tell your beloved how much you love them. And you might tell them how much you love them in what seems to be 10 different ways, but you're really saying the same thing over and over again, and you don't even realize it, right? Because when our frequency begins to rise in this way, the intellectual mind starts to go bye-bye. We're not as attached to making sense as we once were, because the love itself is its own sense. The devotion that we feel is everything. And so we'll say things and we don't realize we're saying the same thing over and over again, because love is so simple. Devotion is so simple. I found that when I was reading this morning, that even though there are 10 different paths here, they're really all saying the same thing, as you'll probably notice. So here's number 1. Develop devotion through japa, kirtan, and worship, or puja. Love God with all your heart. Remember God constantly. Remember the beloved constantly. Japa, as you probably know, is repeating whatever name of God is most resonant to you. The name of God, or the reference to the divine that juices you, that sparks something in you. It may be a name. One of the names that I have so often used is Allah. I love that name of God because the sound ah is in there twice. Ah, la. And Allah is just Arabic for God. So it's all saying the same thing. It's the energy that I give to it or receive from it that is what's going to unlock something inside me, the devotion within me that allows me to come into a direct experience of love. Now, it may not be a name at all. One of the things that we're going to hear in one of the others is a chant that actually Shivananda used to use, which was, I am yours, all is yours. I am yours, all is yours. So this is why you always see me with beads on my wrist, so that it reminds me to, as this says, love God with all your heart. Remember God constantly. Remember the beloved constantly. Even if I'm not praying consciously, I'll find my fingers moving through the beads, which create an unconscious prayer and keep me in that higher vibrational state. Okay? So let me read that one more time. Develop devotion through japa, kirtan, and worship. Love God with all your heart. Remember the beloved constantly. So here's number 2. This is what we do. Keep the company of saints, the righteous and the wise. Study devotional books, and once again, remember God always. We're going to hear that over and over. Remember the beloved always. Just keep that in your mind always. I've used this example before, but if you remember, some of you, when you were teenagers, back then, if it was like my family, there was only one phone line in the house. Maybe there were 2 extensions. There was one in my parents' room and one in the kitchen. And I'll tell you something funny about this in a moment, because I'm just remembering when I told this story before. And the way I told the story was that it had a really long cord. And so I would pull that cord into the pantry, and I would close the door so that I could just sit and if there was a young girl that I was in a relationship with, and we would sit on the phone together for an hour or until someone finally yelled at me enough, just listening to each other breathe. We didn't have to say anything, but just to feel them, to know that they're there, to hear and to feel the breath of the beloved. Apparently, my younger brother was watching that session the last time I told the story, and he immediately sent me a text, said, "You liar, there wasn't even a pantry there." Well, I remember a pantry, whether it's a made-up memory or not, I don't know. It's funny, but it was the more than anything, it was just that feeling that I remember. And we can apply that same feeling to remembering God constantly. Just keeping the line always open. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's 2. Here's number 3. The name of God is divine nectar. God's name is your sole refuge and treasure. Whatever word or association that juices you, that is your refuge and your treasure. God's name and God are one. God's name and God are one. Always chant God's names with devotion. Do kirtan constantly. We keep coming back to this over and over. Remember God always. Do kirtan constantly. In other words, keep this in your mind all the time. This is like, we've used the analogy of a hot air balloon before. And it used to be that they would build a fire, and the fire would be a constant source of lifting energy, right? Now they have probably a gas thing, and whenever is needed, they would give it a good shot, and it would lift it. Okay, if you don't do that, what's going to happen? The balloon's going to start being pulled back. So what this is saying is just keep that gas being pulled. Keep pulling that propane tank so that that balloon keeps lifting you higher and higher and higher. If you stop, you'll find yourself beginning to be pulled back down. Once again, the gravitational pull of the ego is always going to seek to maintain its hold, its grasp on who you believe yourself to be. Okay. Pray to the Lord, pray to the beloved from the core of your heart. I am yours, all is yours. That's a good chant. I am yours, all is yours. That comes from Shivananda. Whatever works. Okay, here's number 5. Feel the presence of God with you always. Notice the word feel. Don't think feel. Feel the presence of God within you always and in all ways. See the face of God in every face that your eyes light upon. See the beloved everywhere. Behold the whole world as God or as the beloved. That's interesting. Behold the whole world, everything that you look upon as the beloved. Once again, that's pulling that gas tank so we stay constantly lifted rather than being pulled back down. Here's number 6. Practice right conduct, cultivate virtues, and eradicate vices. Now we're going to get serious. Be good and kind to all. Be humble. Be pure. Speak the truth. Control anger. Have a large heart and develop compassion for all. You could say that these are all really the fruits of Bhakti Yoga or devotion. When you are constantly in this energy, these things are going to come natural. You're going to practice right conduct. You're going to cultivate virtues, be good and kind and humble. All of these things. You don't have to think about it. In other words, there's no trying. It just happens on its own. Here's number 7. Teach your eye to behold only the divine. See how it's beginning to say the same thing over and over again? We need this repetition. Teach your eye to behold only the divine. And we could use the word no matter what. Even when what it seems you're looking upon is as a disaster, see only the divine. Teach your ear to hear only God's voice. Teach your hands to serve God through saints and through the poor. None of that matters. The high, the low, they're all the same in the eyes of the beloved. Number 8, take refuge only in the beloved. Take refuge only in love, in the divine. Let that be your sole refuge. Surrender yourself and live only for the beloved. Live only for the beloved. Offer every action to God. Then God's grace will descend upon you. I don't know where these came from. Number 9, trust God with your whole heart. Trust is so important. Trust what you're hearing here. Even if it doesn't make sense, all this is saying is trust love. It's going to give you everything you want if you give everything to it. Everything you really want will appear on its own. So trust God with your whole heart. Faith is necessary to attain God. Faith can take you to the inner chambers of the beloved. And finally, constantly repeat some inspiring verses or mantras or the names of God. This should be the background thought of every moment. The background thought of every moment is to simply, okay, you've heard me sing and you probably read the prayer from Yogananda, God, God, God. I've recorded 2 versions of that prayer just because I love it so much. And you can feel it. I'm going to see if I can pull it up real quick because it's such a beautiful prayer and expresses everything that we're saying here so beautifully. So God, God, God. Vicky, I'm so sorry. We're going to run out of time here. But I guess I got on a roll. But we're going to get you in here for a minute. Let me just find this prayer real quick. Okay, here it is. So this is basically an unfettered expression of Yogananda's devotion and bhakti. Here it is. From the depths of slumber, as I ascend the spiral stairway of wakefulness, I will whisper, God, God, God. Thou art the food, and when I break my fast of nightly separation from thee, I will taste thee and mentally say, God, God, God. No matter where I go, the spotlight of my mind will ever keep turning on thee. And in the battle din of activity, my silent war cry will be, God, God, God. I'm going to go to the very end. In waking, eating, working, dreaming, sleeping, serving, meditating, chanting, divinely loving, my soul will constantly hum, unheard by any. God, God, That's what this is. It's so simple. Vicky, why don't you just give us your burst, your expression, just burst for your love.
I love you. That's it. I love you. I love you. I love every brother and sister I see here. But we're about to have a room full of brothers and sisters. I'm back in Boston. And the devotion is love. And James, brother James, it's like you shared your diary with us. That's what it felt like. And you are on fire. It was wondrous and holy and blessed. And that intimacy of love, love, whether you call it God or love, that devotion, it is a devotion. It ends up, the fire consumes us. And you demonstrate that every day. But today was so sweet and so intimate. I just want to say thank you, not just from me, I think from all of us as your family. And I am here. This is one of my dear sisters from Boston, Lenny, and Peter's here, and a bunch of people are coming.
Peter's there?
And
Tell Peter I said
oh,
hi.
yeah, Peter's here. Do you want him to sing? Do you want an overtone from him? He's always ready. Peter's here. He came down from Maine. But I just have to tell you, I am so excited. So
there he is. Hey, Peter.
Yeah. Hi, guys.
So I went and got stuff at the dollar store because it's always two or more gathered. It's always a party. So I was just getting napkins and stuff. And didn't I bump into these little things? These aren't waves. They're head crowns. They're head crowns, and they're selling them at the dollar store. Look at these things. I was like in love because it's not just that they're all of a sudden selling head crowns, but that's a sign. It's like the devotion of seeing God in everything, everywhere we look, God in everything, God at the dollar store, celebrating that we are here to rejoice, that we are here to live in a garden of his love, that's what our life is to be about. And as we live in this devotion of just give it all up, rest in God, trust it all, there's nothing but resting, and that's quiet yet rejoicing experience of living like children in a garden, and that we are the very flowers. And it's everywhere. I saw a sign, a billboard on the highway this morning coming from my sisters that said, be kind. And it was, oh my God, what was it? It was Citizens Bank. I'm thinking, what is that? Look at that. A bank. They're advertising kindness. And I saw it a few other places. But the devotion is, I love you. When we're seeing divinity everywhere, we can't help but express, give, and just embrace that love. I love you. I love you, James. I love you, everyone. Thank you for this morning. Thank you for sharing that diary. Do you want an overtone? You want to do one?
Well, actually, before we do that, I totally forgot that Brittany is here with us.
Oh.
that Brittany is in the room. So I got so going here that I forgot this dear holy soul is. So Brittany, let's hear from you for a few minutes. Who cares if we go a little longer?
Oh, well, I've been enjoying listening and receiving. I feel just as much as everyone. So it's definitely beautiful to just be in the space with you all. But thanks for welcoming me on. I wasn't sure if you couldn't see me or whatever, but it's the perfect flow and I love this. But thank you both to you and for Vicky for highlighting just the devotion to love, the devotion to God, and the added words and just energy that flows through me as you say that is the language of attraction to the eternal, and like you were talking at the beginning, how there's this tendency for us to have this biological attraction, but I feel that by the end, you've turned all of our hearts and our minds and our souls to look to the attraction of the eternal, and to allow all of us to join in this sacred space of this now moment where we are as the love that he created us to be. And if we allow ourselves to continue to focus on the eternal, on the love, and be totally, completely devoted to this love, whether we're at the dollar store or wherever we're doing, the fruits of the Bhakti yoga that you're speaking of, the fruits of the devotion to the love, to the hymn, is what will return unto us 1,000,000%. And this is the presence I feel here. This is the love that is inside the hearts and minds of each and every one of us. And I feel that it's reminded us all today that we can be here right now, totally dedicated, totally committed, totally devoted to the eternal love that he is and that we are. And in that is, to me, heaven on earth. And I'm really grateful to be in that space of truth with y'all today. So that's what I have to add to that.
Oh, thank you. Perfect. Absolutely. It just goes to show that we don't need a lot of time to give that same message, because it's the vibration. And I feel that vibration from both you and Vicky so strong, and from everyone here at Namaste Village who's watching on the Zoom. We can even feel it from the people who watch it on YouTube, because time and space are not real. So wherever they are, whenever they are, it's still just the expansion of that love. So let's just stay with that. If there's one thing that you take from those 10 things that I mentioned, it's just give yourself constantly to the beloved. Just keep, if you want to get beads or something that help, some little tool that can help you remember, great. You could use your fingers, and you can just be, whatever it takes, whatever works for you, give yourself to love, give yourself to the beloved. And to that we say, Amen, amen,
Amen.
amen,
Amen.
punto. We love you. See you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Namaste.